So 132A at the very top. So yesterday we discussed if a husband gives his estate before he dies, if he gives his estate to his wife, he gives his property to his wife, does she actually become the owner, or do we think that he's making her the administrator of the estate, but not really giving her ownership? And we determined that we were talking about the case of a shliv meirav, someone who is ill, for which there are special rules that the rabbis instituted. So now, boy Rava, but Bari Hech, what would Shmuel say about a person who's healthy? He's not on his deathbed, and he grants his property to his wife. So what does he think then? Is she still just the administrator, or is she actually the owner? Now, what are the pros and cons here? Like maybe we would say that why is this rule the case for an ill person, for a deathbed bequest? Because the motivation is that the husband, he doesn't want to give the property to the wife, but we think he wants to give her authority so that people will listen to her. And if he just says she's going to be the administrator, nobody would pay any attention. But if he says she's the owner of the property, then they would have to listen to her. But really, he didn't mean to make her the owner. So that would be the case with the shliv meirav, babari hakayu. But a healthy person, like, he's there to enforce his wishes, right? So he wants his wife to sign the papers, to pull the strings or whatever. She doesn't need extra respect because ultimately he's still there to back up whatever she does. Okay, so maybe we would say therefore there's no motivation for him to make her an administrator. So if he actually says she gets the property, then he means what he says, she gets the property. Odilma, or maybe we would say Barinami Nichale. Maybe even a healthy person would has an interest in his wife getting the authority of being, getting proper authority. Because now he's here, but anybody could go at any time, right? A month from now, he may be gone. So he wants to establish her authority. So when he says, I'm giving you the property, maybe he still doesn't mean I'm giving you the property to own. Maybe he means I'm giving you the property to administer. So Tashma, let's see if we can prove it. A person.
It could be a middle ground too.
I'm sorry?
I'm saying there could be a middle ground. We're saying shliv meirav for someone bari, but a person could have a chronic condition, which is difficult for him to manage his affairs, chronic congestive heart failure, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm. So then you'd think that would be an indication that he doesn't want to give away his property. He just wants his wife to manage it.
Right.
Okay. You could make that claim. But that in that case, it would be for his, like, why is he doing it? But then the reason is a little more obvious because he's unable to do it.
Oh, it's difficult. Yeah, unable, difficult. Too much.
All right, but the Gemara is setting up a binary. Either you're on your deathbed or you're not. And we'll see how it comes out. Is it going to come out that it's the same rules in any case? So let's see. Hakosik Paris Lishta. The person gives the he has property, like the typical example is fruit trees, right? And he wants the wife to get the benefit of the fruit of the produce, but not the ownership itself. Gova ksuvasa mina karka. She can still collect her ktuba from the land itself. So in other words, there's no question she was not given the land. She did not accept this gift as a replacement or as buying out her ktuba. She's just getting the produce. That's fine. If he gave her now a half or a third or a quarter of his property, so we still don't say that this is to pay off her ktuba. If they get divorced or he dies, then she gets to collect her ktuba from the rest of the property that he did not yet give her. But if he gave all of his property to his wife, and then somebody comes along and says, wait, there's a debt outstanding against that property. There's a lien on that property. So the way, let's see, the sequence of events here would be in January, he gave her all his property, right? And then in February, he took a loan against the property. And in March, the debtor comes back and says, I want to collect, my debt with this lien. So what's the status of her ketubah? Like the issue here is that her ketubah is a pre-existing lien, right? So she if there's a dispute, if he improperly put a second lien on the property for a debt, then that's not effective, right? She had the original lien, but the question here is, at some point, is she giving up, or is she allowing her interest in the ketubah to be bought out? So Rabbi Eliezer Omer Tikra Matnasa V'Tama Lo Ksubasa. No, the debt has no effect. The second lien has no effect. Her ketubah is still the original lien, and that's so the gift that he gave her is not effective to buy out the ketubah. The rabbis say Tikra Ktubasa V'Tama Lo Matnasa. No, she gave up her ketubah lien because she allowed herself to be bought out, and then there's a second lien that was put on it by the debt. The creditor is the guy who gets the property, who owns the lien. Vanim says Karachas Mikan Mikan. She loses on both accounts. She loses the gift because the gift was on property that was under lien, and now it's being foreclosed. And she's already lost her ketubah, so she gets nothing.
But didn't he give her everything? But
I'm
he
sorry?
gave he
Yeah, he
gave
gave
her
her
everything.
everything. This is Kosav Kol Nechasav Lishta. He gave all his property to his wife.
So then she has all the property, right? How can she lose it?
Because if it was then under lien, then it then became under lien. So clearly the question here is going to be, did he really give it to her as property, or just as 1 second? Yeah, how does
Well,
uh
how could he loan the property? How could he create a lien or a debt with somebody else if he gave it away already? It's not his, right?
Right. So yeah, so it must be, yeah, you're right. I think I misstated before. It must be that the loan took place first, and then and the property is under lien, but he gave it to her as a gift. Now, how can he give it to her as a gift? So if we think that it was all right, it was under the ketubah, it was under the lien of the ketubah, then he can give it to her, right? Because it's her lien. But if it's under the lien of the creditor, then he can't. Amar Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Yehuda said, "Maaseh ve'ira davar b'vasa chosi kala." This actually happened with this woman who was my niece and also my daughter-in-law. In other words, my niece married my son. Not that it's not relevant; it just happens to be the case. Uba maaseh lifnei chachamim, and they came for a ruling. Avi amru tikrek subasa talmud nasa. She's lost her ketubah, but she can keep them as a gift. And therefore, Venim says Karachas Mikan Mikan, but the gift was invalid because it was a gift of property that was under lien. So she loses out. So Tama Diatzalov Shtarchov. Now this
That was the lien
is
of her ketubah, or was the lien that he gave to somebody else?
lien to somebody else.
Uh-huh.
Because Nim says Karachas Mikan Mikan. Well, she comes out empty. From either way, she doesn't get the ketubah because she allowed herself to be bought out. And she doesn't get the gift because it was a gift that was given improperly. It was under lien. So Talmud Yatzalo Shtarchov. So the reason that she gets nothing is because of the debt that was incurred, because of the loan. Halayatzalo Shtarchov. But if there were no loan, Kanya, she would have gotten the property. Uvamai. Now, what are we talking about? Ilema Vishliv Meira, if we're talking about deathbed bequest, Vamrat loss, Alapatropos. We said, Shmuel said that if it's a shliv meirah and he gives all his property to his wife, what does he mean? She's an executor, not that she gets it. So he must be talking about love bari. He must be talking about a healthy person. And so what do we see that in the case of the healthy person, the rule is different. If he gives her the property, he actually means to give her the property. Right? So Gemara says, Leolam b'shliv meirah. No, maybe this case is talking about a shliv meirah, a deathbed. For Rabbi Avira mokila b'chul. And why do we rule differently than Shmuel? Because We had yesterday Rabbi Avira and Ravina, and they dealt with the cases. They said that Shmuel was dealing with certain cases. The relevant ones here are his fiance or his divorced wife, right? So so if that's what we're talking about, if that's what Shmuel was talking about, when is it considered only an administrator? When is the she considered only administrator and not the recipient of the gift? Only if she's not his actual wife, she's his fiance or she's his ex-wife. Um, so and Ravina B'ishto Arusa V'ishto Grusha. Both Rav Avira and Ravina would say that when did Shmuel say she's an administrator? If she's not his actual full-fledged wife. But we can say that Shmuel would say that if she's his actual full-fledged wife, then he would actually mean to make her the owner and not the administrator. And even if he's a Shliv Meirah, and that's how this would accord with the case of the when the debtor gets involved. So there's no question that she's just an administrator. If she's his full-fledged wife, then he gives her his property, then he means to give her the property, and that everything comes out square.
Isn't Avira disagreeing with Ravina? He says
Yeah, yeah, but
Babakulahu, and
yes,
Ravina says only if this applies to Ishto Agusa, Ishto Gusha.
right. So in those two cases, at least he agrees with Ravina, right? Because Ravina also said that there were like five cases, right? And the question was Rav Avira and Ravina differed on which ones to apply Shmuel's ruling to, but they certainly agreed about the case of the fiance or the ex-wife.
That she can.
That's when that Shmuel would indeed say that she is the administrator, right? But in the case of a full-fledged wife, they would agree that she becomes the owner, not the administrator.
I have one question on what we learned before. How can the Baal set up a loan with another party if he's really owes this
Yeah, it's
property
improper.
as a ketubah to his wife at some point, or does he have total control? And then the ketubah is what is ever left after he gives away everything before he.
No, absolutely not. No. The only question here is so and ordinarily it would be improper. And the lien would
Right.
not be valid. But the question here is like first he gave the property to his wife. So does that mean that she's given up her ketubah rights and now she's uh so yeah, so then like if she owns it, I see your question because if she owns it, then how does he get um give out a lien? Um
How can he give out a lien to somebody on property that is his if ultimately it would become hers according to the agreement
right.
of the
Right,
ketubah?
right. So I think it's what I said before. I think this is what's going on is that um he 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 gives the loan and puts a lien on the property. Now she has a pre-existing lien on the property. So the second lien is not effective yet. Okay. But what happens if she gives up her lien, right? By accepting the gift of the property? Then the original lien of the ketubah is no longer extant, and then the debtor's lien, the creditor's lien, becomes effective.
But
Right?
what
It's like a
This
first
is an
mortgage and a second
example.
mortgage. If you have a first
Just
mortgage
an,
and a second mortgage on your house, right? And you satisfy and you satisfy the first mortgage, you pay it off, then the second mortgage becomes the first in line for the property, right?
I think this is called cheating someone with the permission of the Torah.
Yeah. Um,
Ramban is very
is it though? Is it?
yeah. I
Maybe.
mean, he's trying to con his wife into basically giving up her ketubah
Right. Well,
by giving
okay.
it as a gift when there's a lien on
Something
it.
that's
So there's
already
not,
a lien.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
All
very
right.
clever thing to do.
Right. I mean,
except I
you
don't think
could
he can
say
put a lien
that
on it.
everybody has all the information and she accepts it anyway, but it's more likely what you're saying. that
Yeah.
there's some shady business going on here.
But I don't. But how can he even loan this to somebody else if it's her inherent right to receive this as part of the ketubah?
Like I said, he's second in line with the liens. The let's say the creditor knows about this. He figures the wife is going to die first, right? So, or for whatever reason, he's willing to take, or maybe it's the property is now worth a lot of money, and the woman's ketubah is only half the value. So the creditor is fine. He's like, okay, so I'll collect from the other half of the value, but then maybe
Your
the price of the land goes down.
your analogy, the second mortgage is a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Rav Yosef Bar Yehuda Rav Nachman. Rav Yosef said, "Halacha tikra ksubasa v'tamen al manasa." The halacha is that she loses on both ends. And it says karachas mikan and mikan, that she actually has lost her ktuba by giving it up, by conceding it in favor of the gift, and then the gift turns out to have been under lien, and so she's lost everything. So Lamemra Delo Azor of Nachman Basar Umdana. Wait a minute. So we've seen that as we'll demonstrate, that Rav Nachman does take into account what we assume people's motivations are. Vatanya. Here's a case of a person whose son went overseas. And he got the news that the son died. So now he's got no heirs. So he decides he's going to give all his money to charity or to whoever, to his to some other family member or to some business associate, whatever, because he thinks that the son is not in the picture anymore. Turns out it wasn't true. The son was alive and he came back. The gift that he gave, now this wasn't given as an inheritance, he's just given it away, right? So the gift is a valid gift. It was done. He didn't have all the information, but he gave the gift. It's valid. Rav Shimon ben Menashe Omer ein matanasa matana. Rav Shimon says no. The gift is canceled because Shilu hayodeh shibno kayim looks over. Because if he knew that his son was alive, then he wouldn't have done it. Rav Nachman says we do take into account what we figure he was thinking, right? We do rule like Rav Shimon ben Menashe. So how come here he appears that he's not taking the person's intentions into account, the wife's intentions? The Gemara says Sani Hasan, but the case of the husband and the wife is different. The Nichala, the Tepuk Allah Kala. Because she gets some benefit from this. She gets prestige, right? She's like, oh, my husband is, giving me all this property. I'm a somebody. I'm now independently wealthy. So she, besides the property itself, which is only, which turns out she doesn't really have rights to it, but she at least gets in the meantime, she gets the prestige, right? People will respect her because she appears to be independently wealthy. So even though she ultimately doesn't have a good hold on the property, but she still gets the benefit of people thinking that, and therefore so that is willingness enough, there's reason enough for us to assume that she went into this with her eyes open. And that's why she actually loses it. Okay.
She gets the property. She says she's like a big shot for 3 weeks, then she loses
everything. Right. Exactly.
She loses everything.
Yeah. It's not a chassan. We have another mission. Akosim the chas of Levanov. You give your property to your sons. Because of Ishtal Karka Kolshu, and at the same time, you give some land, a little bit of land, to your wife. Ibda Subasa. She cannot collect her ktuba from what the property that the guy gave away to his sons, right? Because as we'll see, we assume that she is signing off on this, right? By participating in this transaction, in that she gets some land. She is affirming that she is okay with this. In other words, that she's okay with the sons getting the land, and she's giving up her lien. So Gemara says, well, wait a minute. Like what? So he gave her this tiny plot of land that's not worth as much as her ketubah. So like that, that makes you think that she's giving up the larger amount of her ketubah. What's going on here? Rav. Rav answers, Bimzaka lehen al yada, where we're talking about where the husband transfers the property to the sons through the wife. So, like, one explanation here is that she provided the object, like the kinyan chalipin for the possession of land, right? So she provided the pen or the handkerchief or whatever that was used to transfer the property to the sons. So she actively participated. If she actively participated, that shows her assent to the whole thing, including the part where she just gets this little bit of land, and we're assuming that she's accepting it in lieu of her ketubah, or as to buy out her ketubah. Shmuel's a different answer. We're talking not where she participates, but she's there at the time of the transaction and she doesn't protest. So that is enough for us to think that she's signing off. Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina Amar, Ba'omer la tzli karka zu b'ktubasech. The Mishnah is talking about where the husband specifically says that, you know what, this distribution that I'm giving to you, this is instead of your ketubah. And if she accepts it or she doesn't protest, it's clear that that was what was intended, and that's what she accepted. By the way, this is one of the few leniencies of the ksuba laws. Because she's getting bought out for a small amount of money. So this is one of the kind of anomalies. Usually we give the woman more power. Like her lien has primacy over all the other liens, etc. But this is one case where we rule kind of her claim seems to be weaker. It's not, but the Gemara asks, we have a Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Im Kibla Aleha, if the wife accepts it, like she says, like, I accept this instead of as buying out my lien. Afal Pishlo Kosav La, even if he didn't grant her any land or property in this document or in this transaction, if she accepted it, then she's given up her right to the ksuba. Miklal the Tanakamas, and that's the same Mishnah. I'm sorry, I should have said that's the continuation of the same Mishnah. So Miklal the Tanakamas are ksiva vikabalabai. So that means that the Tanakama must hold that it has to be written and with a verbal acceptance. So just her not saying anything, that doesn't seem to be sufficient according to the Tanakama. So Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi. So what are you going to say? The whole Mishnah is like Rabbi Yossi, like the end of the Mishnah. But Vatanya, Rabbi Yehuda, then the Mishnah continues. The Brisa says, Rabbi Yehuda, Amasai. When does this Mishnah take effect? Shahaisa Sham v'kibla. If she was there and she accepted, she said that she accepted the loss of her ketubah. The buyout of her ketubah. But if she was there, but she didn't say anything, she was just silent, or or she wasn't present, but when she heard about it, she said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." That doesn't count. She doesn't lose the right to the lien. Two to the kulu. Then this brisa is against all of the three explanations we had earlier, because according to the Tanakama, then the woman has to say, yes, I accept the loss of my lien. So Tivta, yeah, that is true. That none of those answers seem to be correct. Amalei Rav Nachman, so Rava said Harav Hashmuel. We have these three explanations: Rav Shmuel and Rav Chanina. Mar my severe. Like, what about you, Rav Nachman? Which one do you think is right? Amalei Rav Nachman says Shani Omer Kevin Shalsa Shutav Ben Abanim Iblak Tuvasa. Rav Nachman said, since the husband kind of made her a partner, but like not really a partner, but it was part of the same transaction. She was given kind of equal standing with the sons, not equal property, but an equal standing in this transaction. Ibn Ksuvasa, she has given up the lien on her ketubah. Even if she didn't say anything, So that's Rav Nachman's take on this. Itmar Name, we have a similar statement. Amar Rav Yossi Bar Menyume, Amar Rav Nachman. Rav Yossi said in the name of Nachman, Kevin Shasa Shudu Ben Abani Midot Kavasa. Since he included her in this transaction along with the sons, even if she didn't protest, even if she said nothing, even if she didn't accept it verbally, but she said nothing, didn't protest, then we assume that she has given up the lien of the ketubah. By Rava, and now Rava asked the same question we had before. So we've been talking presumably about the Shchivmei Rava. What about if the person is not a Shchivmei Ra, he's healthy? Mi Amrina B'Shchivmei Ra Hu Diado D'Leslei. Maybe the ruling that the wife loses the lien is because he's on his deathbed, because she knows that this is all his property he's giving away, right? He's about to die. He's not coming into any more property, right? This is it. So if she says nothing, we assume that even so, she's accepting the loss of the lien. She doesn't say anything, therefore she's indicating that she's okay with it. Alba Babari, but if it's a healthy person, Savra Hadar Kane. It's like, okay, like maybe we'll think that she's okay with it because he'll make more business deals, he'll earn more money, he'll buy more property. So like she's not giving up her lien, she's agreeing to this transaction, but she's assuming that if time come at the time that she eventually needs to collect her ketubah, there will be more property, right? This isn't the only property that the guy will ever have. It's all the property he has now. And so if she gives up on it, that doesn't mean she's giving up her ketubah. It doesn't mean she's giving up her lien on his future properties.
Well, why is the case of the Shchivmei Ra work? Why would she agree to that if he says?
I don't know why. I don't know why, but if she doesn't protest, that indicates that she's agreeing with it. Like she's really got an interest here in keeping her lien on this property. If she doesn't protest, then we think that she doesn't care. But if the guy is healthy, maybe she does care about the lien on her ketubah. So why is she letting all this property go? Because he's going to get more property.
That makes more sense.
Okay. Odilma, maybe. Hashtamias Leisla. On the other hand, now, until he gets more property, she's out in the cold, right? What if he dies tomorrow? He may be healthy now, but he could get hit by a bus, and then she's out in the cold. Right? Gemara says we can't answer the question. We don't know. Now we get into some case law. How do Yamalahu Palga Libras Palga Libras? There's a guy who we're assuming it's a Shchivmei Ra, deathbed bequest. I'm giving half of my property to daughter A and half to daughter B. V'tilsa leitas bepere, and a third of the produce, not the land itself, but the produce, to my wife. So Iklar of Nasan L'Sura. Ulu Gabi Rav Chisda. Rav Nachman went to Surah and he went to Rav Chisda. Amalei ki hagavnamai. So what about this case? Is the produce enough to, is that buying out her lien? Is she accepting that as a buyout of the lien of her ketubah? Amalei Hacher Shmuel afilu lo hikna ela deka elacha lepero. So Shmuel said, even if it was just one palm tree that he's giving her for the fruit. She's the fact is she's accepting that without protest. She is giving up the lien on her entire ketubah. So Amalei, Sir Nachman said, Shmuel was talking about the Aknila Begufa Da'ara. Then he's giving her the tree, like itself, the rights to the land. But here there's no land involved. Like he's saying that Shmuel's ruling was when he gave her not the fruits of the palm tree, but the actual palm tree or the land around the palm tree. But here, in the case we're asking about, he's only giving her produce, not property. Amalei, so Rav Chisda says, Mitelte Marta. Oh, you're talking about detached fruit. You're talking about peros only. I'm not talking about that, right? She's not going to give up her lien for for produce, but she would, what Shmuel was saying is she would for real property. How There was another case. Tilsa livras, v'tilsa livras, v'tilsa lita. So I'm giving away a third of my property to one daughter, a third to another daughter, a third to the wife. So, what's the story there? She loses she's assumed to be giving up the lien on the of her ketubah, right? So Shchiva chada mibante. Now, while the father's still alive, one of the daughters dies, right? So who inherits the daughter? The father, assuming she didn't have her own children. So the father inherits the daughter's property that he'd given it to her. Now he gets it back. So what about that? Has she lost the lien on that property permanently, or now that that her husband has reacquired the property, does she have a lien on it again? Several Papa thought that maybe she only gets the third that she was given, and she doesn't get rights to a lien on the property that was returned to the estate. Malay, or to his property while he was still alive. Malay Rav Kana said, what if, take a case where it wasn't an inheritance that he got it from. It wasn't that he gave it to his daughter and the daughter died. Let's say he gave it to somebody else, or he sold it. Let's say he sold the property to somebody else. I'm sorry. No. Not that he sold. I'm sorry. Let's say he had purchased property, right? Let's say that he came into new property not through this weird inheritance incident, but he went and bought some property, Milo Shakla. So as we saw just a few minutes ago, right? She would get her lien applies to any property that he acquires at any time, right? So the fact since that's the rule, Hashanami Shakla. So the fact that he acquired this property from the now deceased daughter, that shouldn't make any difference, right? The fact that he originally the lien was canceled, but now that he's reacquired it, even though it's through her death, even though it's through inheritance, the fact that he's reacquired it means that the lien of her ketubah now applies again to this property.
Well, she's now a partner with him in all his property that he owns. It's his property.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes no difference that how he came into it, or that it was a piece of property that she once had a lien on and no longer does, but now she has it again because it came into the husband's possession. One more case. There was a guy who gave his property to his wife and his sons, but he didn't give out this one piece of property with a single palm tree on it. So Savar Ravina went to say, Leisla Elachadikla. She's given up the right to her ketubah by participating in the transaction where the sons got the property. So she's given up her lien. And the only thing she can collect from is this one little patch of land with the palm tree. So Ravina says, wait a minute. If she doesn't have the right to collect from the properties that the sons got, then she wouldn't be able to, if she's given up the right to her ketubah, then how come she still has a lien on the leftover palm tree? Right? We've been assuming that she's accepted the property that he gave her in lieu of the lien, right? That she had. So she doesn't have a lien anymore. So what right does she have to collect from this leftover palm tree?
Well, who gets the palm tree then?
The sons, the inheritors. What I'm saying is that since she kept the rights to the palm tree, it means she didn't give up her lien, and so she still has a lien on all the property that he gave to the sons. So all the cases we were talking about before was when he gave away all his property. But if he left over a piece, then that anchors her lien on the ketubah, and it never went away. And we will stop here for today.
What the ketubah? I mean, so she has still the amount that she should have received in the ketubah originally. Is that it? Because even though there's just one palm tree left, and she doesn't give up anything that was written in her ketubah from day one, right?
Correct.
There's a note
So,
from,
so then if the son received as a gift, let's say half of her property, half of his property, she can say, no, I never agreed to that because there's still one palm tree left. And when the day comes, she goes to the son, says, no, this is mine, it's not yours.
That's right.
well, she
Uh-huh.
gets to collect the
I mean, it
ketubah.
was a valid gift to the son, but it was a gift with a property that had a lien on it. Now that it comes time to collect on the lien, right? Remember, a lien doesn't mean you're definitely going to collect, right? Like in any other case, if the loan is paid off, or if the ketubah never materializes because she dies first, then the lien is gone, and the owner of the property left that.
So there's a note from Steinsaltz that changes some of this.
Yeah.
The Gonem put in a takana that ketubah could be collected from movable property as well. So if he gives away all his land, doesn't even leave a palm tree, but still has movable property, she can still collect the ketubah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, the rules
put in by the
change, so the
Gonem.
ruling changes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was put in by the Gonem. It was impossible for Jews to own land in Christian Europe.
Mhm.
It was not that common in the Muslim world, though it was technically permissible. So when we ceased to
Oh,
become
interesting.
landowners, the Gonem, very smart, changed the halakha on us.
Interesting.
They
Okay.
also allowed orphans to collect from movable property as well. That had given priority.
Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. See you guys tomorrow.
Yashar Koach.
Okay.